Hey guys, Dave from Nerdarchy, for nerds, by nerds, hang out with this nerd.
I'm Ted.
And today we're going to bring you another D&D discussion. This time we're talking wild shaping, polymorphing, and shape change.
If you want to jump down the description below, you can sign up for Nerdarchy the News Letter. It's a great way to get weekly gaming tips as well as learn how to game with Nerdarchy.
So viewer Jason had a question for us about wild shape, and it was kind of inspired by one of the videos we did about a half-orc druid.
Right.
So what his question was, when you get extra attack and you have multi-attack when you're wild shaping, how does that work?
Right.
First of all, I'm a little unclear by the wording of Jason's question, but nothing gives you extra attack unless you're one of the warrior classes and you take 5 levels.
So if you multi-class off of druid to get extra attack and you're a druid with wild shape, how does it work out? So in this particular example, when you have the attack action, you can choose how you're going to do it. You can choose, in that example he used a bear, multi-attack action as a block, he gets 1 bite and an attack with his claws. If he were to choose the extra attack, he could choose to attack twice with the bite, twice with the claws,
or one of each,
which would essentially be the multi-attack.
Yeah.
So that's how it works out.
The extra attack while you're wild shape is much more beneficial if you change into something that only gets a single attack, because then you're getting more attacks, and it works out pretty well.
Correct.
If anything that you change into that gets more than 2 attacks, then obviously you want to ignore extra attack and go with multi attack. But why would someone do that anyway? Like a fun example for me would be Circle of the Moon Druid with levels in Barbarian. Because then you can use your rage while wild shaped. Which is pretty freaking amazing. You get the bonus to strength damage.
On top of the increased strength.
You would also be able to use the armor class as a barbarian. You wouldn't be able to count any natural armor, I don't think. You'd have to do either or.
Right.
Based on the way the rules work. But chances are, if you're turning into a beefy animal, it's either going to... I think I looked at it before, and for the most part, it's a break even.
Well, if we go with the standard black bear, which is what a lot of people tend to do...
Until they can get the polar bear.
Until they can get the polar bear. The con is only a +2, and there's no dex. So you'd be looking at a 12 armor class as the standard 11 that they have. So it's a tiny bit better.
Yeah.
But
my point is, you get some stuff for doing it. Also, other barbarian abilities, don't they eventually get fast movement, which would increase your movement. All that stuff stacks nicely. Now the downside is, if you're mixing druid and with any other class, your druid levels are going to suffer. So what you can actually turn into
is going to drop down.
Is going to drop down as well. Also, there is other areas where you can really bolster your wild shape, and I would say that would be feats. My son is playing a Circle of the Moon Druid in your game,
right? And
one of the feats that he took was mobility, so it increases his movement.
He started off as human, so he had mobility right away. So I think he was going wolves right out the gate, and he was trucking at 50 movement. Yeah, right away. So it was pretty amazing.
Yeah, it's pretty decent, and there's probably some other feats that would be useful as well, that you could take that would also. I'd have to go through Charger's one. I think that is pretty decent to stack with that. I don't know if he ever took it and he just forgets to use it.
I'm not certain. I don't recall him ever using it, so I would say he doesn't have it.
Yeah, but he's a new player, so there's always a chance that he forgets about it.
There is that.
But alertness, Charger, and I'm sure there's a ton of other feats. Any of the mental ones are going to carry over and work really well for you. And then there's the physical ones that aren't going to be nearly as useful. Grappler might be a good one. If you want to forego things that have multi-attack or whatever and start grapples instead, because a lot of times, you're going to wild shape into something that's a little bumpy and is a bit stronger.
Right.
Then we were also talking about other ways to improve your wild shape. Like, I think a big one probably for a lot of druids is to cast Bark Skin.
Right.
Before they wild shape, to bump their armor class up to a 16. So as long as they can maintain that concentration.
Which, if they wild shape into something with a beefier constitution, that's going to help them out because their con is higher, therefore their modifier is going to be better.
Yeah. Also, not as useful, but I believe is it the durable feat that lets you take a different choose another saving throw, or is it resistant?
I think it's resilient. Durable, I believe, wasn't that the one that gives you more hit points?
No, that's tough.
Okay.
So the extra con bonus isn't going to be nearly as great from that feat, but
getting the proficiency.
Yeah, it is resilient, but getting the proficiency in con, taking it in con would be helpful.
Indeed.
Especially when you're worried about your concentration spells. And then the other thing that a Moon Druid is going to be doing a lot of is sacking out spells for healing.
Right.
So so you could keep that going for a while. Yeah, I keep having to remind David to you can cast your heal.
Right.
He's like, no, I can't cast spells. But it's not. It's different.
You're not casting them. You're sacking the spell slot to heal.
Yeah. So wild shape. If you have enough levels in the game that you're playing to pull off a decent form, most things from other classes will stack right with that in your wild shape form.
Right.
Sneak attacks from rogue, superiority dies from fighter, from the battle master.
If you can sack out spells for healing. If you're a druid paladin, wouldn't you be able to smite?
You would absolutely. Well, yeah, because you're not casting.
You're not casting the spell. You're just sacking it out to deliver a more powerful attack.
Yeah, you could absolutely do that.
I think that'd be pretty savage. Go. What do you call it? Order of the Ancients and Druid.
Yeah. The only problem is you have to get like 50 levels to be able to turn in anything good.
Well, there's some stuff in there that's not too bad. Early on, but
so that goes back to a whole different discussion on multi-classing. How
right.
Being single class is ultimately better. You just get to do interesting things.
Right.
So hopefully that answers Jason's question as far as wild shaping, gives some of you guys some other ideas. But while we're here, while we're changing form, let's look at polymorph and shape change as well.
So I got shape change open here, and now for us. We don't get to these levels very often. I've literally in the past decade of role playing had, one or two characters that were over 15th level.
Yeah, would have been high enough to cast it.
So this is not a common situation, but shape change is your 9th level. This is your ultimate tier. You get to do basically everything. The only thing that's limited by shape change,
undead and constructs.
You can't be undead. You can't be construct. You can't be anything that has the spellcasting feature. So, you got that limited, but thankfully...
You can't be things with a spellcasting feature, or you don't get the feature?
It says, the creature can't be a construct or undead, and you must have seen this sort of creature before. You transform into an average example of that creature, one without any class levels or the spellcasting trait. Okay, so if you shape change into something that does have spellcasting, you don't retain that on top of what you already have. Which is a huge difference.
But you can still cast spells while shape change as long as the form
as long as the creature has the physical mentality, the physical ability to do it. So, like, I shape change into a dragon.
But if you're casting shape change, chances are your spellcasting ability is better than theirs.
Typically.
Yeah, so, you would be a dragon with a lot of spells.
Indeed.
So shape change is the ultimate. That's the pinnacle. That's the one you want to strive for. That is like the wizard stool in what was it, Sword in the Stone?
Yes.
Yeah, that, and also we also saw a bit of that too in Dresden Files.
Yes, that was a fantastic book where that was happening, and granted, I would assume that...
Oh yeah, spoiler. We won't tell you who did the battle.
And I would imagine that there's, if you were allowing that in your game, that there was a liberty taken on the shape change spell where they kept changing into a new form. It was one casting that kept being modified.
Well, it's concentration up to an hour.
But it doesn't specifically say that you can keep changing.
I would probably allow it. As long, well, I guess it gets, well, I would allow it, but if you take damage while your shape changed, I would carry it over.
Right.
So, there's a hard limit. If you're something that, and you took 100 points of damage, you can't turn in anything less than 100 or you pop.
Right.
So
you couldn't go from the dragon to the rat to sneak between the thing's legs to then shape change into the ogre and smack it upside the head.
Yeah, especially if you've taken damage.
Right.
Well, so we've gone to like two ends of the spectrum. Now it's for the time for the middle road.
Right. Now, polymorph is one of those things that we've seen
abused.
We've seen things used, and it's like, well, was this used correctly? The problem with polymorph is that whoever or whatever it's used against, it gets the mentals as well as the physicals.
And you don't retain any of your special features or abilities like you do with Wildshape.
Right. So Wildshape and Shapechange, you are yourself with the added benefit. This is literally, you just change the target A into some form of beast.
You truly, fully, 100% become that thing.
Yes.
Yeah, I know. And Ryan's sorcerer in our game, Chaos Sorcerer in our game, just got this ability. And he kind of is looking at, can I polymorph the Gobblos into a pair of T-Rexes?
Now, if they were sneak attacking on top of that 4d12 bite or whatever ridiculousness it is, that could be seriously advantageous. But if it's just limiting that to that bite,
yeah, they totally, it's inferior. And basically, Anthony kind of put it best. And he's like, if you're asking me, Anthony the player, fuck no. If you're asking me, Richard Pickleton the Gobblo, hell yeah, I want to be a T-Rex. Pretty much sums it up.
What would he do as a T-Rex for an hour?
I don't know. He's got a T-Rex brain. What is he going to do? He's probably just going to try and eat stuff.
Oh, man.
You just got to hope he doesn't run out of the thing. He gets full before he gets to the party.
Eating all the loot that you provided for us.
It's a possibility.
Nom.
Nah, it's a T-Rex. He's going to think like a T-Rex, so he's going to eat meat.
Well, yeah, but I mean, if the thing we're attacking is wearing magical armor,
oh yeah, that's totally gone. Which begs to answer a really odd question of they eat the villains, right, and they've got all the loot, right, but then he polymorphs back into Ritual Pickleton. Where does that go?
Not really sure about that.
I think it's going to get shunted to whatever dimension the extra mass came from. Would be my thoughts on that.
That's perhaps a idea for another video sometime later on.
Yeah. So polymorph, very strong, very powerful. I mean, you're turning, you're changing things from possibly from something powerful to meek or vice versa. Right. It takes a little more creativity to use it, but still, like
as a 4th level spell, it's going to get far more use than the 9th level shape change.
Yeah.
And it has the ability to be used both offensively and defensively.
Here's the thing. Here's a good way to use it. Say you're if you're a sorcerer, you can twin the spell and do it twice, which is kind of strong.
Yes.
It might not be what you want to do though. Like if you're fighting a lot of enemies, you might want to just polymorph one of them into a T-Rex or whatever it is you can. Because it's in the middle of the enemies,
right? So
it's just going to act the way that animal would.
Does that have a range?
Yeah, 60 feet.
All right, so you do have the ability to cast it on an adversary at range, then back up, so it's now in the middle of.
Well, even better if you're a sorcerer, distance spell, double the range, 120 feet, and then you can be 150 feet away. Essentially, when after it goes off, you say you're fighting an army of orcs. Now they have a T-Rex wreaking havoc
in their own ranks.
And and suppose like the T-Rex prevails and kills all the other enemies. Now he's coming for you, right?
End your concentration.
You just end your concentration. Yeah. So there's definitely some fun ways to work with this spell.
And then you also have the ability to advantageously, just suppose you have a less moral character or caster in your party, you could hire mercenaries, NPCs if you will, and be able to send them into battle. And right as they hit the front ranks, boom, you turn them into a Triceratops or a T-Rex and let them wreak havoc on your adversaries. And
either they get worn down and turned back, or
or they prevail and you end the concentration.
Yeah. So Polymorph is a lot of fun like that. I think you guys need a catapult now. Well, I mean, or just use Bloodfang and just throw the Gobblos, and in midair they get hit by the Polymorph and then turn into T-Rexes. Because you definitely want them to be in the middle of the chaos when that happens.
Oh man,
what do you think?
I think it's utterly ridiculous. It's you get to that level when you get to this kind of level, when we're dealing with 4th, 5th, 6th level spells, you have the ability to add so much more to the game, because some of these spells like Polymorph,
you need a second sorcerer to then twin haste the T-Rexes.
Oh my god.
Just some thoughts. What do you guys think? Polymorph, shape change, and wild shaping in your game. How do you use them? Let us know in the comments below. While you're at it, like, share, and subscribe.
You can check out all the awesome stuff over on nerdarchy.com.
So until next time,
stay nerdy.
Hey guys, Dave from Nerdarchy, 4 nerds by nerds. Hang out with this nerd.
I'm Ted.
And today we're going to bring you another D&D discussion. This time we're talking wild shaping, polymorphing, and shape change.
If you want to jump down the description below, you can sign up for Nerdarchy the News Letter. It's a great way to get weekly gaming tips, as well as learn choose how you're going to do it. You can choose, in that example, he used a bear. Multi-attack action as a block, he gets 1 bite and an attack with his claws. If he were to choose the extra attack, he could choose to attack twice with the bite, twice with the claws.
Or one of each.
Or one of each, which would...
By the wording of Jason's question, but nothing gives you extra attack unless you're one of the warrior classes and you take 5 levels.
So if you multi-class off of Druid to get extra attack, and you're a Druid with Wild Shape, how does it work out? So in this particular example, when you have the attack action, you can have a game with Nerdarchy.
So viewer Jason had a question for us about Wild Shape, and it was kind of inspired by one of the videos we did about a half-orc Druid.
Right.
So what his question was, when you get extra attack and you have multi-attack when you're wild shaping, how does that work?
Right.
First of all, I'm a little unclear.
Essentially, be the multi-attack.
Yeah.
So that's how it works out.
Yeah. The extra attack while you're wild shape is much more beneficial if you change into something that only gets a single attack, because then you're getting more attacks, and it works out pretty well.
Correct.
If anything that you change into that gets more than 2 attacks, then obviously